the rethink going on interprovincial trade barriers. Remember, different provinces, a lot of protectionism that goes on. They want to protect their own industries, and it can be difficult for a company, let's say, in one province to do business in another. There's a lot of red tape and bureaucracy. My guest is SeoRhin Yoo. She's a senior policy analyst for interprovincial affairs with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. SeoRhin, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about this and how many trade barriers there actually are. For people at home who are not aware, just give us in layman's terms how difficult it can be sometimes.
I mean, incredibly difficult. We can't even count all the regulations, right? Just because a lot of the things are provincially or territorially regulated. Regional autonomy is great, but then because every jurisdiction is allowed to be so different, it makes things incredibly difficult when they come to the negotiation table because they don't even know where to begin most times. So it can make goods flowing from one province to the other just incredibly difficult overall or impossible at times.
Yeah, what's the reason behind these trade barriers? Why do we have them when we're all part of the same country?
For sure. I mean, it's like you mentioned, there is a little bit of protectionism that stems from it. Jurisdictions want to protect their local businesses from other competition. They also don't want to be the only province or territory that lets everyone else, bring in their products and services while they don't get the reciprocating treatment, right? And it also has to do with the fact that because they're regionally, regulated, things differ so much and people don't know where to start tackling these barriers.
I know there have been conversations going on for decades about trying to remove these barriers. There's a lot of talk, but not a whole heck of a lot of action. Do you think that this trade war with the Americans is finally going to be enough to bring down those barriers for good?
We're definitely seeing progress like no other. I mean, yesterday, the Alberta government announced that they're going to be entering into a free trade and labor mobility agreement with any province willing to do so. Nova Scotia, they tabled a bill to legislate mutual recognition. We're seeing a lot of talks from different provinces, groups of them saying that they're going to ease their alcohol barriers as well as labor barriers. So these are all promising things, and we're hoping that, the actions follow quick enough as they say it will.
Yeah, what would the biggest benefit be, do you think, if we got rid of a lot of these barriers?
For sure. Studies have told us that by removing these internal trade barriers through mutual recognition, it can boost the Canadian economy by over $200 billion. So that's about over $5,000 per capita. That's not a small drop in the bucket. And while removing internal trade barriers isn't going to be the silver bullet when we're faced with a 25% tariff on all goods, it can definitely soften the blow for a lot of Canadians.
And one last question about certified professionals, because this is a big deal as well. The idea of letting them, practice in other provinces and trying to get rid of, again, some of the barriers to access. If somebody lives in Ontario and wants to move to Alberta or BC and they're a certified professional, there can be a lot of rigmarole to be recognized in that province, trying to get rid of some of that stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's what the provinces are working on in the CIT groups, as we've been told. We're hoping that we actually see some, a lot of action, quick action on it. Nova Scotia, for instance, their mutual recognition bill, it includes services. So labor mobility is included in one of those. This is the kind of thing that we want to see expanded into all provinces and territories to let professionals start working as soon as they move from one province to another, because my doctor from Manitoba, I don't think she's going to find it that much more difficult to work on patients from Nova Scotia. We're all human, we have the same bodies.
Absolutely, well said. Hey, SeoRhin, thanks for taking the time today.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, SeoRhin Yoo joining us from Winnipeg. She is a senior policy analyst for interprovincial affairs with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Great.